Welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk about if statements in C. Simple enough, maybe. There's a few traps and gotchas because C's like that, and I'd like to introduce you to them. So here's a syntax definition for an if statement, and it's written in a notation called BNF, standing for Backus Now form, the two guys who originally came up with that in the dim dark ages. And what this says is that the syntax for an if statement is defined to be the following: colon, colon equals. It's defined to be the word if. It's in double quotes, so we have to type that. So let's work through it. It's defined to be if. Then it's defined to have, it must have open parenthesis. Then it can have an expression, not written in quotes. That means it's any expression. And an expression which might be suitable here is n greater than 5. Then I have to have the closing parenthesis, and then I have to have a statement. This bar means or, but I'll just do the first bit of it first. So then I have to have a statement, and I'm going to do this all in one line to make a point. I'm going to use put s, and I'm going to say big. If n greater than 5, put s, that's put a string big. Put s, remember, is like a printf, except it doesn't do any formatting, and it sticks a new line on the end of the string. And because this is C, I better put a semicolon on the end. Let's check it works first of all. Compile it, run it. Says nothing. No surprise, because n is not greater than 5, it's equal to 5. So let's make it 6, build it, run it, and now it tells us big. That was the first part of this. It said if, expression, statement, but now we come to or, if, expression, statement, else statement. So it's actually legitimate for me to carry on with this and say else, put s, small. Now the semicolon. That works too. And in this particular case, it's going to print big, whereas if I take n back to the 5 it had before originally, no big surprises here, it says small. However, we don't lay out code like that in ENCE 260, do we? So there's a few rules. If you need motivation for the rules, I don't want to spend too long on this, but here's a problem. This there satisfies that syntax perfectly. It says if n is greater than 5, then if n is greater than 3, put bigger, else put big. What does that else belong to? Does it belong to the if, this if, or that if? There's actually no way of telling in that syntax definition. It's a poor syntax definition, really. And so it's called the dangling else problem, and C actually says that else belongs to that if. But that's horrible code, and in fact modern compilers warn you this isn't a good idea, because if I try and compile that, it comes up, it's actually a warning, although it says error, it's a warning, suggest explicit braces to avoid ambiguous else. So in ENCE 260, explicit braces are not just optional, they are the rule. And from now on then, you have to, or not from now on, always, you have to put braces in here to say where the statement starts and ends. So this is if n is greater than 5, and always your blocks, the sub-blocks, the sub-statements in C have to be enclosed in braces. And in this case, we change convention a little bit from the block here where the braces open and close on the same line, and in conditional statements and loops we're going to open the brace on the same line as the if and close it where the brace lines up with the I. I'll talk about that style convention in a minute. So then if I want an else, I do it like this: else, put s, small. The layout then finishes up looking like Python, except we've got an extra line of code in here to terminate the brace. So just kind of get used to the idea that we're going to have an opening brace instead of a colon, and we're going to have an extra close brace to mark the end of the block. So that's how the statement should be laid out. I just want to quickly look at the semantics of an if statement. What does it mean? So it means what you think it means. No surprise here. It means if n is greater than 5, then we put the string big, otherwise we put the string small. But I just want to look a little bit. N greater than 5 is an expression, and you would probably expect from C or Java that it evaluates to either true or false. But actually it doesn't. It evaluates to either 0 or 1. It evaluates to an integer value. And if that integer value is non-zero, then it behaves like true. Otherwise, and only if it's 0 does it behave as false. So essentially any integer at all, n greater than 5 plus 3 is perfectly legitimate in C. Just to make it a little bit clearer, I'll write it like that. That's okay. N greater than 5 plus C, it compiles and it says big. If I were to do n greater than 5, let's make n 6 minus 1, then n greater than 5 will evaluate to 1. When I subtract 1 from it, it will evaluate to false, so that will be false, so it will print small. Let's just prove that I'm right, because I'm always a bit nervous about these things. It prints small. So, yeah, it's probably good to know that there is no explicit Boolean type. Well, not often. There is actually in C99 a new type called _BOOL, which is hideous beyond belief. You can't use the name bool because it wasn't a reserved word in the earlier versions of the language, but you can, if you really want to do this, you can actually give yourself a type bool by going #include std bool.h, and now I can do stuff like bool bigger is equal to the value n greater than 5, and then I could say if bigger. So you can do that if you want to. You probably won't feel the need in this course, but that works sort of. Moving on, layout rules. I've already told you I want you to lay out always with a open and closed brace. So we'll get rid of this bool business. Lay it out like that, as we've already seen. Now, the code runner actually requires that you lay it out exactly right, just as it did for Python. I got very sick over the years of looking at rubbish code laid out with all sort of higgledy-piggledy nonsense in it, which is okay as far as the C compiler is concerned, but not my cup of tea at all. That sort of stuff there. What does that mean? So there is a solution, and the solution is a program called astyle. And to get your code laid out correctly, ready to submit, you select it all with Control-A or Edit Select All, and then I can edit, format, send selection to astyle. This is set up on the lab machines. If you want to set this up at home, you'll have to install astyle and follow the instructions which are given in the lab for configuring a home machine. But that works, and it's all gone back to the way we wanted. This layout convention is called the one true brace style, 1TBS. And I'm not getting into religious arguments. I am God. I say you do it this way. That's how it works in my ENCE 260. There are a whole heap of different style rules. Nested ifs, how do they work? Well, you lay them out kind of like this, and I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. This is essentially the same layout as in Python, except that wherever you had a colon in Python, you have an opening brace, and you have to have an extra brace at the end to close things off again. There is an exception, and here's the exception. To look at this piece of code and see what it does, it says if C is greater than A and C is less than Z, then it's lowercase alphabetic, assuming some character C somewhere. Else, if C is greater than 0 and less than 9, then it's numeric. Oh, sorry, I've skipped, but uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, etc. Hopefully you get the hang of that. Now, notice we didn't lay it out the way I just said. We don't lay it out by putting an open brace after the else and putting this on the next line. This is a pseudo else if. C does not have an elif or else if statement because it doesn't need one. You can do it this way. So just get the hang of that. Again, if you copy that out into a piece of bad code like this one here, there's a mess. And I can fix it up by Control-A, format, send to, etc., or Control-1. Control-A, Control-1 cleans my code up for me. Shouldn't be a problem if you use astyle and follow my style guidelines. There is one other statement in C which is a sort of conditional. This one here, the switch statement, it's a quite extraordinarily horrible statement, and the lab exposes you to the true glory of a switch statement by showing you just how counterintuitive it can be. Don't often want to use it. Good to know about, good to be able to read about it, not so good to actually use it in the wild, as it were. So that's all I had in mind for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.